Okay, let's talk about David Culley, the new head coach. You've known him for a long time. He was the receivers coach at Texas A&M 91 to 93, I believe. He's been a long-time receivers coach. He was assistant head coach with the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. He was with Andy Reid. Because somebody was telling me today, David Culley's just bounced all over the place. I said, are you kidding me? He was with Andy Reid for 18 freaking years. From 1999 through 2016, 18 seasons with Reid, trusted enough to be assistant head coach, trusted by John Harbaugh to be assistant head coach in Baltimore. He was quarterbacks coach of the Bills for 2 years, 2017 and 2018. The playoff year with Tyrod Taylor, he was quarterbacks coach. 2018, the first year with Josh Allen, he was quarterbacks coach. I'd love to know why he decided to first step into that after all the time with Reid and then exit after 2 years and go back to being a receivers coach. But, this is a guy who's been around the NFL a long time, and it's good to see something happen for maybe someone, and we talked about this today, Charean, a guy who maybe hasn't politicked and promoted himself and tried to inject his name into the discussion and is just happy to have a job and bust his butt and do well and try to be part of a winner and try to coach players and lead men and mold young men into responsible adults. And he's not thinking, I need to do this. I need to have this agent who's going to be talking to media people who will be positioning me to be a head coach at some point. I'm just happy to be where I am, and that's my focus. And that's been his focus for 26 years. And his ship has come in. And I think that part of it's a great story.
It is, Mike. And he said that to me last night. He said, I was content with being assistant coach for my entire career. He also coached under Bill Cowher for a couple years. Coaches, when you look at the A&M staff who he had with him, Gary Kubiak, Mike Sherman, some guys like that. Dennis Allen and Aaron Glenn both played on that team. So he's been around a lot of great coaches in his career, groomed under them. And if you notice, all the criticism is coming from people who don't know him. All the positivity is coming from people who do know him. And I think he's going to be a very good head coach. Now, he's in an impossible situation.
The gremlins are invading again. I think the screen was about to go black. I always wait for that moment when the screen goes black. We'll get Charean's connection reestablished. Until then, let's hear from Andy Reid, the coach of the Chiefs, who was with David Culley for those 18 seasons. Here's Reid from earlier today on the traits that his former assistant and right-hand man, David Culley, will bring to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, David will do a good job. He's a people person. He'll bring energy to the building, and one of the most loyal guys I've ever been around. So he's just he's a great person. I mean, we were together 18 years, so we had a few cheeseburgers together.
Every time I hear people person now, I think people person, paper people, the jingle from the Office commercial that never was. But Reid also was conflicted as it relates to what someone would have asked as it relates to David Culley versus Eric Bieniemy. Two of his, one current, one former trusted assistants under consideration for the job in Houston. Culley ends up getting it, and it's going to be an interesting experiment because this is clearly outside the box. This is a guy whose name never came up for a head coaching job, never was a coordinator anywhere, and now he's a head coach. And I'm rooting for him. I'm ambivalent on whether or not to root for an organization that is so dysfunctional and that it entrusted the keys to the car to a guy who's unfit, because I think there are many other people in the NFL who should have that job. But I am rooting for David Culley.
I have my Texas jersey behind me, Mike, just for David Culley, because I'm rooting for him too. But it is a dysfunctional franchise. And again, I don't think they're going to win anytime soon, but I sure hope for David Culley that he gets the chance to be there long enough that we can see some wins for that organization. So, he's a great communicator. He commands a locker room, and I think all the players who played for him would tell you that. And we've seen some tweets on Twitter about that, and they all respect him. They'll play hard for him. Again, I don't know if they'll win or not, but it reminds me a little bit of Joe Judge. We didn't know much about Joe Judge either when he went to the Giants, and you saw that team play hard for him, and they did all the right things for the season, but they were still bad. I mean, I know they came close to getting into the playoffs as the NFC East champion, but they were still a bad team. But it reminds me a little bit of that situation, Mike, kind of walk into a situation when you don't know how he's going to be as a head coach. But I was not surprised, and I told David this, that he nailed the interviews, because that's what he does. And he'll do the same thing with his players. He'll command that respect for him. And he's surrounded himself with some former head coaches, which I think helps. I expect Romeo Crennel to stay there, and Lovie Smith's coming in as defensive coordinator. So he has some guys with experience who've done this. That'll help.
I now fully appreciate how significant this hire is to you, that you would obscure the Roger Staubach jersey, and you can actually see
just
the
Roger
Staubach jersey. But you didn't even take it down. It's like, take that, Roger. I'm putting the Texans jersey in front for today because David Culley is going to be the coach of the Texans. You know, something I've heard from multiple different people in the league, the belief that Culley is going to be a short-time head coach of the Texans as they groom Josh McCown, likely to be the quarterback's coach and likely to be the successor to David Culley whenever this experiment ends, whether it goes 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, 2 years, however many years. There are people who believe that's where it's heading, and it is believed that McCown, who interviewed for the head coaching job, will be the quarterback's coach, and they'll begin that process of getting him ready to be the coach at some point down the road, Charean.
And that's what happened in Dallas. You know, they hired Jason Garrett before they hired Wade Phillips, and you knew Jason Garrett was going to be the next head coach of the Cowboys, even though they didn't say it, and that's exactly what happened. 2010, they fired Wade Phillips in the middle of the season, and Jason Garrett got the job. So not going to surprise me if that happens. This likely is David Culley's last coaching job. According to Elias, he's the oldest first-time head coach ever in the NFL. He's 65 years old. So however long this lasts, I think it's the end of his career, but hopefully it lasts a while and he can bring a championship to the city of Houston.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.